You may be able to see there is not actually a hedge line on this sketch. I added a hedge to the original watercolour that I tried and I quite liked it, so I thought maybe I'd try and keep a little element of that. For some reason I have it in my mind that the light is coming from the right somewhere. I think that's why I've ended up with the shadow on the chimney there, so I'm going to stick with that. I think there is a field or some sort of garden here, so we really need a bit of grass in there too. I'm not really too bothered if it melts into the hedges. Also, I'm not really too bothered if it blends in over the tree. At least it means there won't be any white gaps. Probably should be a bit more here as well. I feel like the big hills are starting to rise behind here. May need a bit more yellow. Yeah, make that a bit brighter, I think. I've still got a little bit of darker green there left on the palette, so I'll put that at the bottom of the field. It might look like there's a hill. Perhaps put a bit in my little shrubs there. It should also have a bit of this on this side of the tree. That should technically be in the shade. maybe just put a few bits of colour on here. Not quite sure what colour the stone's going to be yet. Now in the novel it actually does say that Barton Cottage is in a valley, so on that theory there should be hills, and I think it does say somewhere in Sense and Sensibility that there are hills rising behind it and it's in a valley that comes down below, and I presume there's some sort of river nearby because that's what happens with valleys usually. So I'm imagining the valley to be somewhere behind it. I'm beginning to quite like this. It still needs work on the house obviously, but you've got to do the background really before you move on to the foreground, otherwise you end up with white bits. Do not normally have this kind of success with watercolours. But then again, to be fair, this is a second attempt. I'm going to put a hedge in there. I just feel like it needs a hedge. After all, I think this is supposed to be after the Enclosure Act, so yeah, there should be hedges, shouldn't there? If Sir John Middleton was so inclined. I think when I went to Devon, I did notice there seems to be quite a lot of grey stonework, but I went to Barnstaple, which is more north, and this is supposed to be near Exeter, which is a bit further south. So how much difference that makes to the bricks that were available, I really don't know, but it may have made a difference. going to do a similar thing here with the roof. So there's a bit of Payne's grey and ultramarine in this, in case you're wondering, which I've dampened the paper as far down as the end of the roof line, so hopefully that will contain it a little bit. We've got the tiles across the top there. So it is actually starting to build up a bit of a nice roof effect so far. Again, I don't think it matters too much that the colours are blended in a bit. I sort of want them to, because I'm going to try and get some different colours into the roof. So bit of grey there, which I've got left over on the palette, so might as well use it. That's just a hint of shadow there. Try not to get too much. Perhaps I can wear these bits of colour and maybe I can actually work those into the brick. It's something I recently saw somebody else do, and it occurred to me that maybe this is the answer with watercolours. You just make the most of mistakes. I don't want to do too much dark grey because I think this is more of a, not sandstone, but a lighter coloured building, so I don't want to put too much in. But a tiny bit won't hurt. As though the path should be quite white, just for the moment. Maybe need to get a bit of sunlight into it. And if we're putting white there, could also really put a bit into the bushes. That might prepare it for a bit of light green later on. Unfortunately, talking of white, it seems to be disappearing very, very quickly today. So I think, unfortunately, I'm going to have to call it a day there. And I will pick this up again when it's all dried. Just before I get started today, I thought I'd show you my practice piece. This is a leftover strip of watercolour paper, but I'm using it to practice colours on before I put them on the finished painting, which is quite fun to play with, and I'm going to keep it as well because it's quite a good record of the different effects you get. So it might be useful for later reference. I can already see quite a few bits here that I think I'm going to have to do some work on, but that will come in time. I've only put quite a little bit of shade on the tree and the hedges and a tiny bit on the grass, but it already looks really different, which is promising, and I didn't expect that to happen so quickly. So things are going in the right direction. This is just an idea I was playing with, but somehow it works very well with the paler grey. This has got more like purple in it. Yeah, I think it just finishes the windows off nicely. I feel these stones on the top of the roof should just be a bit darker than the rest of the roof. And I think perhaps a bit more here. Again, just to bring out the roof lights. Just been adding a little more definition on the hills. Again, I'm trying not to put too much on, but hopefully it's given it more of a shape of a valley now, which is supposed to be somewhere behind the house, according to the novel. And I'm still waiting for the path to dry. The paper is completely dry now, so I think it's safe to attempt the shadow. Let's see how this goes. trying to follow the sort of hints from the shadow on the grass. I may just add a bit more there. Because I feel the path should really be a kind of grey, gravelish looking thing. So we'll put this in. Finish it off there with a couple of highlights. We just put a bit more in there to try to hide the white bits. That's my version of what I think Barton Cottage might look like. I've done all I really want to do to it now, and I think we'll call it done. One last question though. Is this how you see Barton Cottage in Sense and Sensibility? Is it bigger? Is it smaller? Is it a different shape in your mind? Please let me know in the comments. I'd be really interested to know.